There is a brutal moment in every man's life when he feels the ground shift beneath him. One instant, he stands as the pillar of certainty, the axis around which her world spins. The next, he sees it in her eyes, a flicker of doubt, a subtle withdrawal, the cold edge of disappointment. Respect has slipped through his fingers, often without a word spoken. And when it goes, it does not return easily. This is not a matter of love, nor of attraction, nor even of loyalty. It is a question of power, and no one understood the fragile, merciless balance of power better than Niccolò Machiavelli. He warned us centuries ago that the very instant a ruler shows weakness, he invites rebellion. A man may have built empires, conquered hearts, and held authority, but if he falters in this single moment, he ceases to be feared. And the one who is not feared cannot command respect. What Machiavelli observed in the ruthless courts of Renaissance princes, we witness today in the private theater of modern relationships. The brutal truth is this: women do not lose respect because of mistakes, flaws, or failures. They lose respect the moment they sense that your power has collapsed from within. This is the hidden law that governs the dance of respect and desire. This is the law Machiavelli whispers from across the centuries, a law written not in books, but in blood and betrayal. And if you can grasp it, if you can learn to wield it, you will not just keep her respect, you will become the man who commands it without question. Machiavelli's world was one of shifting allegiances, treacherous advisors, and fragile thrones. In his masterpiece, he declared that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. For him, love was fickle, built on obligations easily broken when it no longer suited someone's interest. Fear, however, was reliable because it was rooted in the one thing all humans dread: consequences. Now consider the parallel in your own life. A woman may love you for your charm, your wit, your kindness. But respect is born not from those qualities. It is born from her belief in your power, your certainty, your unshakable backbone. The moment she sees that you cannot enforce the boundaries of your own life, she feels the same disgust a citizen feels for a prince who bows before his enemies. Love might remain, but respect evaporates. And without respect, desire dies. Think about this carefully. A man believes he wins respect by proving his devotion, by showing softness, by offering concessions. Yet Machiavelli would laugh at this delusion. The prince who bends too easily, who tries to please all factions, becomes the weakest ruler of all. In the same way, the man who sacrifices his dignity for the illusion of harmony poisons his own throne. Women do not test you because they hate you. They test you because they are wired to measure the strength of the man they stand beside. Every gesture of hesitation, every surrender of principle, every collapse of will, these are signals. And when those signals accumulate, respect shatters like glass. This is why the law is so brutal. It does not matter how much good you have done, how many years you have given, how deeply she once admired you. Respect is not a savings account. It is a living force that must be fed every day by the way you carry yourself. The moment you drop the crown, the moment you reveal your inability to rule yourself, she sees you differently, not as her anchor, but as her liability. And in that instant, her attraction begins to wither. But why does this happen so suddenly, so mercilessly? Because nature does not reward weakness. Machiavelli understood that rulers who hesitated paid with their lives. In relationships, men who hesitate pay with their woman's respect. And once respect collapses, everything else soon follows. You may cling to her affection, you may beg for her patience, but deep down, you will feel it the gulf between who you were in her eyes and who you have become. That gulf is not closed by promises. It is only closed by restoring your power, by standing once more as the man who cannot be bent. And here lies the cruel genius of Machiavelli's insight. Respect is not earned by appeasement. It is preserved through a subtle, unyielding aura of authority. It is not about cruelty, nor about dominance in the crude sense. It is about embodying the law that says, I govern myself, and therefore I am ungovernable by others. This is the essence of power, the essence of sovereignty, the essence of masculine presence. And every time you violate it, even in small, invisible ways, you chip away at the one thing that holds her in awe of you. But how does this law play out in the brutal theater of modern romance, where equality is preached, where softness is celebrated, and where strength is often condemned? Does the Machiavellian law still hold weight in an age that pretends it has moved beyond it? Or is it, in fact, the hidden engine still driving her respect, hidden beneath layers of cultural lies? The answer is more unsettling than you imagine. Strip away the illusions of modernity, and you will find the same ancient pulse beating beneath the skin of every relationship. A woman does not lose respect because you failed to wash the dishes, or because you missed a date, or because you stumbled once in your career. These are surface-level grievances. They may irritate, but they do not annihilate respect. What annihilates respect is the fracture in your spine, the moment she sees you betray your own authority. When you hesitate to enforce your word, when you allow her moods to govern your actions, when you abandon your mission to orbit around hers, she sees it. She sees the collapse. And Machiavelli would tell you, the subjects of a ruler who collapses will not simply forgive. They will conspire against him, consciously or unconsciously, because weakness invites attack. Respect is bound to power, but power in the Machiavellian sense is not about brute force. It is about perception. A prince may not always have the largest army, but if his people believe he is unshakable, they will obey. A man may not always have the perfect life, the perfect body, the perfect income, but if his woman believes that his core is unmovable, she will align with him. The moment she doubts this, her instinct to test intensifies. She probes, pushes, and prods, not because she wants to destroy you, but because she wants to know if you are still the man she can trust to lead. If you fail these tests, she will not respect you for your kindness, for your explanations, or for your pleading. She will quietly withdraw, because in her eyes, your crown is fallen. Machiavelli warned against misplaced generosity. He wrote that a prince who lavishes too much mercy and concession upon his subjects is not loved more, but despised more. Why? Because such mercy signals weakness, and weakness in power invites contempt. Translate this into modern intimacy. The man who constantly seeks to appease, who sacrifices his edge for peace, does not win admiration. He becomes invisible, a background figure, tolerated rather than revered. This is why countless men wake up one day bewildered, asking why she no longer looks at them the way she once did. They believe they have been good, dutiful, selfless. And yet, all the while, they have been bleeding out the very respect that kept her desire alive. Here is the truth you must carve into your mind. Women respect men who are anchored in themselves, not men who are anchored in them. The moment you orbit her world, she sees you as a planet, not a sun, and she cannot respect what orbits her. Machiavelli would phrase it differently, but the essence is the same. Once a ruler is ruled, he is no ruler at all. Do you see the brutality of this law? It does not bend to fairness. It does not care about your intentions. It does not excuse your sacrifices. A woman may acknowledge your efforts. She may even thank you for them. But deep down, her respect obeys a colder logic. She cannot admire what she governs. She cannot revere what she commands. And so, whether she admits it or not, she begins to seek out the man who cannot be bent, who will not crumble under the weight of her storms. The implication is devastating for most men, because they have been trained to believe that respect is purchased with comfort, with devotion, with endless reassurance. But Machiavelli would call this a fool's bargain. Respect cannot be purchased. It can only be commanded. And command is born not from gestures, but from your very being. When you stand before her as the embodiment of self-rule, when your decisions flow from principle rather than reaction, when you lead not by demand, but by presence, then and only then does her respect take root. But what happens when you stumble, when you falter, when you are caught in the very moment that destroys the illusion of your power? What happens when she sees hesitation, fear, or dependence spill out of you in a raw, unguarded instant? Does Machiavelli offer redemption for a prince who has already revealed his weakness? Or is the collapse final, irreversible, the throne permanently lost? This is where the knife cuts deepest, and the answer is one most men are unprepared to face. Machiavelli never sugarcoated the consequences of weakness. He wrote with the cold precision of a surgeon, cutting through illusions that comfort but destroy. For him, once a ruler exposed his fragility, conspiracies multiplied. Enemies who had long stayed silent rose up. Allies defected. The crown that once gleamed upon his head became a target, and respect drained like blood from an open wound. In the theater of relationships, the parallel is merciless. Once a woman sees that your strength was a mask, once she witnesses a collapse of resolve that you cannot recover from, her vision of you is altered permanently. You may still be loved, perhaps even cherished for what you once represented, but respect, the fuel of desire, the anchor of polarity, has vanished. And when respect dies, attraction soon follows it into the grave. Does this mean redemption is impossible? Not entirely. But redemption is not won through apologies, promises, or explanations. These are the tools of the weak prince, begging his subjects to believe what they already know is false. Redemption, if it comes only through a radical restoration of power. A man who faltered must demonstrate, not in words but in unshakable action, that he has returned to sovereignty. He must be colder, sharper, more disciplined than before. He must embody the law again so completely that she cannot deny its return. Even then, it may not rekindle her respect as it once burned, but it can reestablish enough of the aura of power to command attention, to demand recognition. This is why the wise man does not gamble with respect in the first place. He understands it is a crown made of glass once shattered. It cannot be pieced back together in the same form. He does not betray his own word. He does not sacrifice his throne for fleeting comfort. He does not abandon his mission to soothe temporary storms. He carries himself with the quiet, immovable certainty of a man who knows that the world bows only to those who bow to nothing. And here lies the paradox that so few men grasp. Women do not lose respect when you are harsh, when you enforce boundaries, when you stand unmoved in the face of their anger. They lose respect when you fail to do these things. The very acts that frighten men into submission, saying no, standing firm, walking away, are the very acts that keep respect alive. Machiavelli understood this instinctively. He knew that a prince who tried to please all ended up pleasing none. In your life, the man who tries to placate his woman endlessly ends up despised rather than adored. So the question emerges: what is the brutal truth about why women lose respect? It is this: because you gave them the chance to. You revealed uncertainty where certainty was demanded. You traded strength for harmony, forgetting that harmony without strength is an illusion that collapses under pressure. You abandoned the throne of your own sovereignty, and the moment you did, she no longer saw a man. She saw a servant. And servants, no matter how kind, no matter how loving, are never respected. But here is the dangerous promise. If you embrace this law, if you live it, if you refuse to abandon your authority for even a moment, you will transform the way women respond to you. Respect will no longer be begged for, it will be inevitable. Attraction will no longer be coaxed, it will flow naturally toward her gravity. You will no longer fear her withdrawal, because you will know that your power is not rooted in her approval, but in your sovereignty. And once you taste this, once you feel the weight of respect, not as something fragile, but as something anchored in your being, you will never return to the man who pleaded, explained or compromised himself into invisibility. The law is merciless, yes, but within its brutality lies the greatest gift, the blueprint for unshakable presence. And every man who accepts it stands at the threshold of transformation. The question is simple. Will you bear the crown, or will you abandon it? Will you be the prince who commands respect, or the servant who forfeits it? Your answer determines not just her respect, but the very essence of the man you will become. Understand this. The moment you recognize the law is the moment you can wield it. You are not here to plead or to apologize. You are here to embody authority, to radiate certainty, to make hesitation impossible. The world does not honor uncertainty, and neither do women who sense it. Every glance, every gesture, every pause is measured against the invisible yardstick of your presence. When you falter, even slightly, she perceives it. Her respect, once unshakable, slips like sand through fingers. And it is gone not because you failed her, but because you failed yourself. This is the ultimate betrayal, the one that leaves no room for excuses. The mechanics of this collapse are subtle, often unnoticed until it is too late. A man may compromise on principle to avoid conflict, allow his decisions to be swayed by moods, or yield in situations where firmness is required. Each concession is a fracture in the facade of power. Each hesitation whispers the same message to her subconscious. You are not the man you claim to be. And here lies the cruel truth. Women are wired to detect this fracture instantly. Their respect is a mirror reflecting the integrity of your authority. Once that reflection cracks, the admiration, the desire, the loyalty, all of it diminishes. The laws of attraction are not kind. They are ruthless, and they reward strength, consistency, and self-sovereignty above all else. Consider the countless men who have stumbled into this trap. They believe that being liked, being agreeable, being understanding will secure admiration. Machiavelli would call this a naive, dangerous folly. In his court, the prince who placated everyone was overthrown by the very subjects he tried to appease. In your life, the man who over-accommodates, who sacrifices backbone for approval, is equally vulnerable. He may enjoy temporary affection, but the long-term currency respect is being systematically drained. She may smile, she may praise, she may even express love, but the essential gravitational force of desire begins to erode. And once that erosion reaches critical mass, nothing superficial can restore it. Here is the unvarnished truth. Respect is not a reward for kindness, devotion, or generosity. Respect is the recognition of your unshakable core, your ability to govern yourself, and by extension, the dynamics of your relationship. When you align with this principle, your presence becomes magnetic, your actions authoritative, your silence compelling. You do not need to command with volume. You command with existence. But when you violate it, even inadvertently, you trigger a chain reaction. Her mind begins testing, probing, evaluating, searching for signs of weakness. And when she finds them, the subtle withdrawal begins. The warmth diminishes. The light in her eyes dims. She is no longer aligned with your gravity. Now, this is where most men fail to see the remedy. Redemption is possible, but it demands a ruthless recalibration. It is not earned through excuses or charm, but through absolute restoration of authority. You must act decisively, with clarity and uncompromising intent. Every choice you make must reinforce your unshakable identity. You must rebuild the throne of your presence piece by piece, demonstrating that the collapse was temporary, and that the man she once respected is alive and untouchable once again. This is no small feat. It requires discipline, foresight, and a cold acceptance of responsibility. But it is the only path to reclaim what was lost. Ask yourself, do you stand before her as a man who bends to circumstances, or as a man who bends nothing at all? The answer defines not just her respect, but the trajectory of your own life. For the man who governs himself is a man who cannot be governed by others. This principle transcends romance. It is the cornerstone of personal sovereignty. Every action, every word, every glance must be filtered through this lens. Only then can you cultivate a presence that is immune to the erosion of external opinions. Only then can you transform fleeting admiration into enduring respect. And remember, this is not about cruelty. It is not about manipulation. It is about embodying a force so consistent, so anchored, that it compels respect automatically. To fail here is to invite subtle rebellion. To succeed is to command natural allegiance. Women respond to this instinctively, unconsciously. They may not articulate it. They may not even recognize it, but their behavior reflects the truth they cannot deny. Strength commands, hesitation dissolves. At this point, the stakes have never been higher. You have glimpsed the mechanism, understood the law, and felt the cost of its violation. The question now is whether you will accept it fully. Will you build your life around this principle, allowing it to shape every decision, every boundary, every interaction? Or will you continue to gamble, risking respect for the illusion of comfort, approval, or harmony? The answer is the fulcrum upon which your identity pivots. And once made, it cannot be unmade. Respect is the crown. Sovereignty is the scepter. Hesitation is the fracture that shatters both. Master this law, live by it, and you will transform not just your relationships, but your entire existence. We are not yet finished. There is one final imperative, one ultimate truth, one last force to imprint upon your consciousness. The crown can be reclaimed, but only through relentless adherence to self-rule. Only by embodying the unbreakable principle that guides every action, every choice, every thought. And in this adherence, in this embodiment, you find not just her respect, but the blueprint for a man unshakable, irresistible, and sovereign. You are at the threshold. The throne is before you. Will you rise to it? To rise is not a casual choice. It is a deliberate act of will, a conscious decision to sever all ties to the man who bends, pleads, or compromises himself into invisibility. Every man faces this threshold, but few cross it. Most will cling to comfort, to approval, to the hollow semblance of peace that comes from yielding. And in doing so, they surrender the one thing that defines masculine power, the capacity to govern themselves. The woman at your side senses this surrender instantly. It is written in your posture, in your speech, in the way your gaze falters when tested. She may not name it, she may not accuse you, but her respect recedes like a tide pulling away from the shore. Machiavelli understood that the fear inspired by a ruler is never a threat, it is recognition. It is an acknowledgement of the boundaries that will not be crossed, the principles that will not be bent, the sovereignty that cannot be compromised. In relationships, the same principle applies. You do not earn respect by softening. You earn it by solidifying. You do not regain it through persuasion. You regain it by demonstrating that your internal law is unassailable. The man who can recalibrate himself after collapse is more formidable than the man who never faltered, because he has faced weakness and mastered it. This mastery is visible, undeniable, magnetic. Imagine the scenes where most men fail. She challenges your decision, tests your patience, questions your resolve. The instinctive reaction is to appease, to soften, to explain. The naive man believes this will restore harmony. The Machiavellian man sees the trap and responds differently. He asserts, he clarifies, he maintains the line. He does not argue endlessly. He embodies the answer. He does not negotiate his authority. He exemplifies it. In these moments, respect is either lost or preserved. The outcome is determined not by words, but by the weight of presence, by the certainty that radiates from a man who governs himself first and foremost. It is here that the most subtle and dangerous dynamic unfolds, the misalignment between intention and perception. A man may believe he is strong, yet if his actions suggest otherwise, perception overrides reality. Machiavelli's brilliance was in understanding that the world bows to perception, not truth. A ruler can be capable and courageous, but if perceived as weak, he is destroyed. In intimacy, a man can be intelligent, loyal, and loving, but if perceived as pliable or uncertain, respect erodes. Every act, every decision, every silent moment communicates either dominance or surrender. And so, the lesson extends beyond singular moments of weakness. It permeates daily life, informing every choice. What you tolerate, what you negotiate, what you allow to slide, all of it contributes to a measurement of your sovereignty. Every concession chips away at the throne you occupy in her perception. Every hesitated boundary is a fissure in the foundation of respect. By contrast, the man who consistently aligns thought, word, and action with his unyielding principles commands a gravity that is impossible to ignore. Now, consider the consequences of failure on a larger scale. When respect collapses, the relationship does not merely shift, it transforms. Affection may remain, but admiration diminishes. Desire wanes. Her attention diverts, subtly at first, then more decisively. And as attraction fades, so too does influence. You are no longer the center. You are background. And yet, there is a rare path back, a path that requires more than apology or charm. It demands restoration of presence, recalibration of authority, and the deliberate demonstration that the fracture was momentary and has been healed. The man who seizes this path becomes extraordinary. He becomes magnetic not because he seeks to be loved, but because he has mastered himself. He is disciplined, decisive, and unwavering. He acts from principle rather than reaction. He does not falter in the face of challenge, because his identity is not contingent upon approval or fear of loss. In this transformation, the attraction she feels is inevitable. The respect she withheld is returned, fortified by recognition of the ordeal you overcame, and by the knowledge that your sovereignty is permanent, not conditional. So, the question you must confront is not hypothetical, not philosophical, not theoretical. It is visceral and immediate. Will you accept the law in its full brutality, internalize it, and allow it to govern every decision, every boundary, every interaction? Or will you continue the slow erosion of your own throne, offering comfort while sacrificing authority, pleading for respect that could have been commanded? Your choice is not merely tactical, it is existential. It determines whether you remain a man whose presence inspires gravity, or one whose absence is barely noticed. The crown of respect is not given. It is seized, maintained, and defended every day. Hesitation is the fracture that destroys it. Sovereignty is the armor that preserves it. And the man who embodies this principle transforms not only his relationships, but the very core of his being. This is the final threshold. The throne is before you. The crown awaits. Will you rise unshakable and sovereign, or will you falter and surrender what cannot be reclaimed?